Katie had always been fascinated by the idea of time travel. She had read countless books and watched endless movies about the subject. So, when she discovered that she had the ability to time travel herself, she was beyond thrilled. At first, she only used her powers to explore the past. She visited ancient civilizations, watched famous battles unfold, and even witnessed historic events like the moon landing. But soon, she began to experiment with changing things. It started with small things, like moving a vase from one side of a room to another, just to see if she could. But then she started toying with bigger things, like preventing accidents or making small changes to history to see what would happen. For a while, everything seemed fine. The changes she made were small and didn't seem to have any major consequences. But then, one day, she made a bigger change than she had ever attempted before. She was visiting the 1800s, watching a group of pioneers as they made their way westward. As she watched, she noticed that one of the wagons was about to tip over. Without thinking, she used her powers to prevent the accident. When she returned to the present, everything seemed normal. But then she started to notice small changes in her world. People who she thought were dead were suddenly alive again, and events that had happened before were different. It wasn't long before she realized what she had done. By preventing the accident in the 1800s, she had changed the course of history. The people who had died in the original accident were now alive, and their descendants were too. And because those descendants had lived different lives, everything in Katie's world was changed as well. At first, she didn't know what to do. She was scared and confused, and didn't know how to fix things. But then, she remembered something she had read in one of her time travel books. She had to go back to the moment when she made the change and undo it. It was easier said than done. She had to figure out exactly when and where she had made the change, and then find a way to undo it without causing even more problems. She spent weeks researching, poring over history books and old documents, trying to find the exact moment when she had made the change. Finally, she found it, the wagon accident in the 1800s. With a deep breath, she traveled back to that moment. She watched as the wagon tipped over, and then she undid the change she had made. The wagon righted itself, and everything went back to the way it had been. When she returned to the present, everything was back to normal. People who had been alive before were dead again, and events had unfolded in their original way. It was like nothing had ever happened. But Katie knew that something had happened. She had learned a valuable lesson about the consequences of time travel. She realized that every action she took had the potential to change the course of history, and that those changes could have unintended and far-reaching consequences. From that day on, she vowed to be more careful with her powers. She would still explore the past, but she would do so with the utmost caution, knowing that even the smallest change could have a huge impact. And she hoped that others who had the power to time travel would do the same.